Thanks for tuning in to the 2015 shareholder meeting. Going forward, I want to continue on the basis of always making improvements at the company. And I believe to make 2016 even better, what we need to do is a performance review as such. I want to see how I can do better as a leader with the company. What we're going to do is a bit of undercover boss style. So we're going to hear a bit from current employees and other outside sources. Let's take a look at one current employee who's going to talk about how I've been doing with power in the workforce.
When tasked with talking about Sergey's power, a few thoughts came to mind. He definitely has authoritative power. He's a co-founder of Google, that's clear, but he also has influential power. Coming from the Google X department as an engineer, I know that every day he inspires us and influences us to do our best work because he really thinks that it will change the world for the better. And with him being so passionate about that, he influences us to do that and bring our best work every single day to the office. Sergey uses some reward power, which is common for executive leaders. For example, he gives employees incentives to come up with a new successful aspect or project of Google. Employees are also given time to be creative and work with whatever they deem important. This also reinforces Google's culture of forever innovating and creatively progressing every single day. But he does not use coercive power. This is a good thing, but he still remains serious about his work and the values and mission of Google. Sergey Brin heads the Google X department and the ethics department. This exemplifies Sergey's expert power and informational power. He's one of the masterminds behind Google, and through Google X he puts his expertise and knowledge into action every single day. However, he doesn't wear this on his sleeve, and his employees respect him for that. This exemplifies Sergey's reverent power, driving the utmost respect from his employees. Sergey uses his social power as opposed to personal power to motivate his employees to change the world and be the best that they can every single day. He feels it Google's obligation to progress the world and connect the world, and through this social power, Google has become one of the top companies in the world. I believe Sergey discourages organizational politics in order to expand his customer base and make everybody feel welcome at Google. But this doesn't mean that he doesn't have political skill. He clearly has political skill in a way that he can lead by example, make his employees feel appreciated and comfortable, and like they're making a difference in the world.
Here at Google, we have a culture that is common with startups. It's very open. It's a very open culture. Here at Google, we encourage our employees, Googlers, to contact us with any questions they have, whether that's by email, directly walking up to us in the cafes or cafeterias to ask us questions, and things like that. Weekly, every Friday, we have TGIF meetings in which Googlers around the world ask questions directly to me, myself, Sergey, or other company execs about a variety of issues, and they vote for these, which questions they most want answered online. In addition to us having a very open culture, I believe that this works because it creates, with these meetings and such, and being open, it creates transparency, and our employees feel like they are fully engaged with what the company is doing, and they know where our company is going and why it's going that way. We have a flat company. We have a very small number of middle-level managers, but a very high hands-on upper-level management, engaging with our lower-level employees. And in addition to that, our 80-20 rule allows for innovation, openness, and freedom for our employees. Yearly, we usually hold a rewards party for our employees who come up with the most creative and best ideas throughout the year, but also for employees who have had the biggest failures or worst ideas throughout the year. These employees are given stock options and recognized as to setting their goals, but also failing by trying to achieve their goals. This creates a fearless culture within our organization. A story that is often shared is one about in which our COO lost millions of dollars for our company through a business transaction. And by allowing other employees to see this, it allows for openness to risk-taking and for failure to be accepted. In the Google Glass Labs, gut feeling has very little impact on how decisions are made. Sergey encourages employees and teammates to, instead of saying, I think, he encourages them to say, the data suggests. This, in combination with our open culture, ties to his values of ambition, innovation, because these values led to Sergey's success. He thinks that it can lead to other success as well, and thus this is how innovations such as Google Glass, the autonomous vehicle, and Gmail have all come up out of this lab. Someone who can give us a direct insight into the setup of our offices and the amenities offered are one of our internal architects and his design team.
Years ago, I was given the task to design one of Google's new buildings, and Sergey must have liked my work because since then I've been kept busy for the past several years. What we really had decided was that it would be an open platform where people could come together and really work together. We wanted people to see the engineers from the mechanic sides and the software, and our security engineers as well. And Sergey liked this, and he's told me a couple stories about how employees really come to him and feel open and able to speak to him one-on-one when he's having lunch or walking around the office. Even interns too are really surprised when Sergey comes up and greets them and gives them some thoughts that he has on the projects they might be working towards. I think the reason for this is that Sergey knows that his input can really go a long way and inspire others. And I mean, the input he gives me is pretty impressive too in my schematics and designs for future offices. And I think this really touches on some of his key instrumental values of helpfulness and open-mindedness. Some of the amenities, though, in our building currently are gym passes and the gyms I've designed. We have daycare, free food, there's nap areas as well, which is pretty unique. Makes Google one cool place, if you ask me.
I think that any employee or outsider would say that we have a strong culture. Our values and mission are clearly articulated both to the public and to our internal employees. These employees know what they're doing, and by having their goals and values lined up with our goals and values, it creates more success for the company. We have a very stringent hiring process in which employees are asked what may seem as goofy questions, or they often will interview with 8 people on 8 different occasions, so that we can ensure that our values and mission align with our employees. This creates success because our employees are able to collaborate together and work together, and this aligns with Sergey's terminal values of wisdom and achievement. Through innovation, imagination, openness, helpfulness, and valuing society as Sergey values society, our employees will find success by achieving their goals and by gaining priceless wisdom. Sergey values every employee at Google as an individual asset to Google's success. And as Sergey always says, keeping the culture isn't the goal, improving it is.
Google does well in the effective decision by having a very specific role in the work division. They have the programmed role that each Eric, Larry Page, and Sergey have different part of the job. Sergey will do the engineering and the business deals, and Eric will do dealing with the the management part. Larry Page will do the product management and some engineering part. They do well with this measure, and by having agreement on the key issues, they would have a timely objective, and their whole goal is to meet the objectives. So, based on these roles, they work well for most of the issues.
Sometimes, however, that program decision making doesn't always work for the company. When it comes to making decisions in that program setting, if Sergey Brin does not like decisions that are made, especially when it comes to Google X, he does not have to go with what the rest of the triumvirate says, as well as the rest of the company. He has that final say, so he can veto anything that comes in, which leads to a great deal of bias in the company, because ultimately he would make that final decision, and that means that only one person in the entire Google organization has any say in that full decision. He does not have to take into account anything that anybody says, even his business partners, which can lead to a great deal of bias, as I'm sure you can.
Well, by breaking the bounded rational model, unlike many other companies in which the decision would be made by some senior managers, and the decision will be implemented top and down. Google have some small teams, and each team can attack the problem, and all the individuals can try to influence each other with stating the rational data and persuasive reasons. The company allow the individuals give the reasons, but they have to have some rational data. Instead of thinking, instead of saying they think, they have to say like the data shows, because their feelings really doesn't work to the decision making. This requirement is good for the base of the rational model. When they have those requirements, they can make sure the outcomes of all the decisions made they must be rational, and all other employees can be aware of the disadvantage and the advantage of the alternatives. In this way, they can calculate how the alternative would be success in the probabilities. Google have a very unique company culture, but in some terms, this culture actually doesn't work well for some aspects. They have the open office for all employees. The goal is to have the very good teamwork upon all employees. But actually, when they don't have, most of them don't have the private office, this is not good for the creativity, and the employees would feel the peer pressure. They can't work well on their own thinking. For example, the very famous employee Type Lee, which is defected from Microsoft, he also need to share the office with 2 other employees. Yeah.
As far as decision making goes, Google's had a lot of really effective decision making, obviously from the very beginning, but one of their decisions that may have been seen as more of an ineffective decision is a more recent one with Google Glass, which is a portion of like a subsection of like Google X. And so Google Glass was kind of released on the market not too long ago, and just kind of almost forced on there, and it just flopped essentially. And I think this might be because of the phenomenon of groupthink. I think ultimately what happened is there may have been some like peer pressure from within that group for some employees who maybe just kind of said yes because they felt like they had to. They were pressured into it, even if they maybe didn't believe that it was ready. There also may have been like this unanimity of like thinking that maybe it was ready, and maybe they all just kind of were almost persuaded into believing it was ready when maybe it actually wasn't. And so they put it onto the market, and not realizing, they had kind of rationalized that, well, since it's the first of its kind, people will pay whatever price we put out there, and that wasn't essentially true. $1,500 is a lot of money for something that you aren't sure how it works. In addition, a lot of people didn't believe that, they just kind of thought it was a weird concept. We're kind of afraid of like what like privacy barriers it might bring along with it, and just were really uncomfortable with the idea. And so essentially it was a very ineffective decision because it kind of set Google back. They had to pull the idea, and it didn't really stay within the time frame that they wanted. It wasn't extremely...
Collecting all this information today has been really informative, and it gives me a lot to think about going forward. I'm optimistic about Google's potential for this next year, and I believe that I have a lot that I've gained today to make improvements to myself